Chris Mackowski of Emerging Civil War, and I'm with Greg Wade, the founder of the Franklin Civil War Roundtable, and Greg's been giving us a fantastic tour of this battlefield today. And there's so much more to see now than there was even 2 or 3 years ago.
Absolutely.
We're standing on a spot that, if people have been to Franklin, they've probably been here. This is Winstead Hill. Mm-hmm. It's a private park that is run by the Sons of Confederate Veterans. What can you tell us about this spot?
Well, this is Winstead Hill, as you said. The Sons have owned this hill for many, many years. I'm not sure how long. It adjoins a public park just below us. But it has been monetized with the various states that fought here. They come and they erect markers, etc. What's important about Winstead Hill, though, is, for those of you who have been here, is this is the observation post that General Hood originally stood somewhere in this area as his troops marched on November 30th, 1864, north towards Franklin, the federal fortifications there. After the battle got involved, he left this observation post and moved forward for a better view of what was going on. Used to, when you came up here, you could really see the flat terrain and the 2 miles into the city. Unfortunately, now foliage has a lot of the view blocked. But we are fortunate that this has been preserved, because, like a lot of other things in Franklin, could have condos sitting up here right now.
So put me in Hood's shoes. When he's standing on this spot, it's getting late in the day. His men have marched all the way up here from Spring Hill, and he sees the Federal Army basically ensconced south of the city, protecting the river crossings, waiting for him. Is that what he was expecting when he got here?
That's a big story, Chris. As we know, the day before he lost his opportunity to bag Schofield's army at Spring Hill. So he had to get up the next morning, find out that Schofield had escaped what looked like a certain Confederate victory. So then he had to go in hot pursuit, march for 20 miles, and gets here at 4 o'clock. Doesn't even have all his artillery up. So he orders attack at 4 o'clock. So what's he thinking? Well, he looks into the town there, and he knows that the Federals are behind already existing earthworks. He knows it's a 2-mile plain, but he's asked his troops to do things in the past, and they've been able to do it. I don't think he had a whole lot of choice. Mm-hmm. There are people who say that he could have flanked the Federals. There are people who say that he could have sent General Forrest north. But the reality of it is, he had lost his real chance the day before. Had they broken the line and kept the line broken at Franklin, he would have been a hero. Mm-hmm. He would have bagged Schofield's army. But of course, we don't know what would have happened after that. May have prolonged the war, may have helped them come to a negotiated settlement of some kind. But Hood didn't have a lot of choices. He could not turn around and head south again. That would be retreating in the face of the enemy. Richmond would have certainly been all over him. So he had to attack, and he thought his men could do it, and they darn near did.
And of course, one of his options, he could just try to wait out the Federals, but as we've talked about, there are reinforcements that could come down from Nashville. So time's against Hood. He's got to do something.
Well, that's true, and Nashville was being rapidly fortified during this time because they felt the threat of the Army of Tennessee coming in. And really, the Federals, all they wanted to do is get out of town and get to the Nashville fortifications. So he could have sit right here and probably waited on them to leave, but they would have still escaped. Mm-hmm. And his goal was to capture that army.
Now he's expecting to resume the fight the next morning. He's got a couple divisions that have not yet engaged. He figures he's going in, but Schofield escapes overnight. So by default, Hood gets the battlefield, and often considered a Confederate victory. But is it really a Confederate victory?
Well, if it was, you don't want many victories like that. It gutted his army. He held the ground, but the ground at this point wasn't very strategic. And the Federals had escaped into Nashville, and we all know what happened a couple weeks later at Nashville. So this was his only chance.
And then the fighting comes back through here after Nashville.
It does.
Me a little bit about that.
People don't realize the trauma that the locals went through during the war. Not only do they have this battle and others before it in this area, but on December 17th, after the 2-day battle of Nashville, the Confederate Army had been broken, and they were retreating right back down the same pike. They actually fought back through Franklin. There was a skirmish here at Winstead Hill. More fighting for almost up until January, I think, and all the way to northern Alabama before the Federals finally broke it off.
So one last action here at Winstead Hill. You mentioned S.D. Lee comes to a little bit of grief here.
Yeah, S.D. Lee was in command of the rear guard, and his people were the less beaten up at Nashville. So Hood assigns him the job of the rear guard, and S.D. Lee takes a mini ball into the ankle right here. At which point, the command of the rear guard is turned over to Carter Stevens.
Now, all the while, as they're conducting that rear guard action, James Wilson's cavalry is harrying them and harassing them. That turned out to be a harder project for Wilson than Wilson thought it would be. Tell me about that.
Well, you're right. The very first fight after the Battle of Nashville, early December 17th, at a place called Holly Tree Gap, which is 5 miles from us here. The Confederate rear guard had set up on hills that were on both sides of Franklin Pike. Wilson's cavalry thought that it would just be an easy take to come down and bag the army, and he was being ordered to bag the army. But he got clobbered at Holly Tree Gap. As a matter of fact, he would later write that he was deceived and now he was undeceived, that it was not going to be that easy.
Isn't that always the case?
Yes.
Greg Wade's been so kind to show us around Franklin. Thank you for this remarkable opportunity today. It's been a real privilege to be on the field with you.
It's been fun, and I hope all your viewers don't write in and tell all those mistakes I made.
Well, I think all of our viewers are delighted that there's now battlefield to see here.
Absolutely.
So thanks to you and all of your colleagues for the preservation work and the reclamation work that you've done here at Franklin. A real success story. Thank you so much for that.
And Chris, we're proud of what we've done here, and we ask people to come see it.
Come and see it for sure. So I'm Chris Mackowski with Greg Wade. Thank you so much for joining us here at Franklin on Emerging Civil War.